business had knowledge of. The shooter team was not put together to kill JFK. It was put together to kill Fidel Castro. It was training down in Mexico City, a little area just off of there, and it didn't ever take a shot at Fidel. But that team did kill JFK, and Lee Harvey Oswald was the front. If you'll read my book, or if you'll read the record, Sirhan Sirhan is the man that everybody says killed JFK's brother, Bobby Kennedy, who was going to run for president in L.A. But he used an Ivor Johnson, didn't he? And how many bullet holes did they find? They found more bullet holes than the Ivor Johnson had bullets. How do you account for this? They found that Kennedy's death, Reed Noguchi's autopsy, Kennedy was killed by 2 bullets in the brain, fired at close proximity, right there to the right back of his head. This is Bobby Kennedy. And where was Sirhan Sirhan? He was out in front of him, 7 feet away, with Rosie Greer. Remember him? Had his arms around Sirhan Sirhan. Nobody gets away from Rosie Greer. So if you're one of those who believe, is it any coincidence that George Bush, a proud Texan, is it any coincidence that he was close friends with Hinckley Sr. when Reagan had a shot? And where was Bush when this happened? He's over in Japan. And what happened to Hinckley? Was he tried? Look at the Simpson charade. And here a president was almost killed. Ronald Reagan almost lost his life, didn't he? And you never did see a trial. Where is Hinckley Jr.? He's in St. Elizabeth's. What is that? That is an insane asylum in Washington, D.C. You know, the only communication that has been recorded since that time, which was about, well, 2 months, less than 2 months from the time Ronnie Reagan was inaugurated in 1981. It was March, wasn't it? End of March. He was shot there in Washington, D.C., almost died. And you've never heard anything other than in 1983, the New York Times released a little statement that they had smuggled out where Hinckley says, I was part of a conspiracy. Before I freak you out too much, let me remind you of something that I put in my newsletter, and I'd invite your attention, because what did Clinton just say he was going to do about classified documents this last week? Actually, it's this week. This is only Friday. I'm thinking we're already, just this week, what did he say? He's going to declassify any documents that are 25 years or older. Hallelujah. Do you think that'll actually happen? There's an operation that I wrote about in my newsletter. I didn't pull it out of the sky. It was in the Miami Herald International. It's called the CIA Operation Pedro Pan. Now, if the IRS were to bring out 16,000 Cuban children, you might be a little suspicious. If the Red Cross did it, you might still have a little suspicion. If the Salvation Army did it, it'd probably be all right. You'd say, hey, they're fine. If the Rockefeller Center did it, you might say, hey, they're finally doing something to get a proper tax deduction. But when the CIA brings 16,000 Cuban children out of Cuba without their parents, are you wondering what's going on? What would the CIA do with 16,000 children? At the same time, they're running a memorial institute in Montreal for mind control. What's happened to these children? See, I just want to, again, plant some of these facts that have occurred so you won't think that Big Brother is faultless. Because what I'm about to tell you, I think you will find eventually will come to pass. I don't believe these young men acted by themselves. I don't believe they learned how to put, because would you say maybe that making French onion soup, anybody here ever had really good French onion soup? Hold your hand up, will you? There's only, how many ingredients in French onion soup? I mean, you got some bread at the bottom. You've got some onions, don't you? you've got some kind of a base there, a soup, and you've got cheese, don't you? Isn't that's French onion soup? It's pretty simple, isn't it? The worst French onion soup I ever had in my life was in Texas. I saw it on the menu. I asked the lady, I said, is this good French onion soup? Because I love it. And she said, it's wonderful. She brought me a bowl that had a piece of bread that was kind of floating in it. It was bouillon cube soup. She had sliced an onion up inside of it with a slice of American cheese on the top. And that was French onion soup. It's simple, isn't it? But it's how you put it together. That bomb was a masterpiece. That was probably, I've talked this thing over with Scott, I've talked it over with Gary, I've talked it over with other people that I have high respect for. I'm a demolitionist myself, trained in special forces, trained armies all over the world how to do this kind of stuff. With our heads together, we agreed that was a Rembrandt. That was a masterpiece. That was not Texas French onion soup. That came... That boy came right out of Langley. Now, I know some of you are saying, gee whiz, ooh, he said it. I didn't know if I would, I thought maybe I could close my ears and wouldn't have to hear him. Machiavelli, Hegel, we have prepared the ground, just like the artillery goes in and prepares for the ground assault. Now you've got to have something to, through emotion, energize people so they will allow the government to do what otherwise the people would have revolution over. And that is disorganize and disarm you. So, do you think the CIA, with what I have mentioned so far, would not, for all of the greater good, blow up the federal building in Oklahoma City? Not somebody wearing a three-piece suit, carrying a Central Intelligence Agency identification card, who will retire on a handsome pension. These guys are officers in the CIA. But when I trained the Afghan, did my checks come from the CIA? No. My checks came from Stanford Technology, a California company. But when you saw the Ollie North documents, it said $50,000 CIA covert funds to Stanford Technology. Everything is sifted and layered. So I'm a contract officer to the CIA for training of Afghan, because otherwise we didn't want to be known that we were doing it. Do we do this a lot or just a little? There are a lot of contract. Remember Nicaragua, when the C-123 that took off from Clinton's Mena, Arkansas, and it was shot down in Nicaragua, and there was a man named Hassenfuss aboard. What did Hassenfuss say? He said, I am working for the CIA, when the Contra, or the Sandinista rather, had him, didn't he? And what did the CIA say? They said, no, we don't know him. 3 times before CNN got through its 30 seconds around the world or whatever it does. We don't know him. Were they telling a Washington truth? Yes. Everything in Washington just has to be half true. And of course the other half can be a complete lie. Who did work for the CIA? I've known him for a long time. His name is Felix Rodriguez. His nom de guerre is Max Gomez. Max Gomez was the name he was using. He is the one who hired Hassenfuss to be a pusher out of a C-123 supplying the Contra. So the government could legally and kind of half-truth say, no, we don't know him. Trying to set the models for you. Here is what I think happened. Let's cut right to the chase. I think, and you would never have President Clinton or her vegetable ever admit to anything like this, but I want you to be in the Oval Room of the White House, and you know I've got to respect both Bill and Hillary, because I think it's right for them to have the flags at half-staff. I think it's right for them to